Hello, everybody. Hi, guys, and welcome to episode 12, I think, of the Plot Twist podcast. My name is Catherine, and I am coming to you from Berlin, Germany, which is where I grew up and where I now live with my husband and our 3 kids. This is a slow fashion podcast focusing primarily on knitting and also mending, and then on all the other things that I do and read and think about and want to chat about. So welcome if you are new to this channel, or welcome back if you are a returning viewer. You can find all the things that I talk about down in the description box below this video. I will put links there to my Ravelry page or to whatever it is that I'm talking about. You can find me on Ravelry as Frau Christ. I will link that down for you as well. And on Instagram as Katharina Knits. So all the places where you can find me are down there. If you want to get in contact, you can send an email to, I think it is hello@plottwistyarns.com, or obviously message me on Instagram. And yes, these are the ways to get in touch or follow along, and obviously right here on this channel. So I am happy to be back before too long. So because the break between the last video and the one before that was a little longer. And so now I took advantage of the fact that, man, I don't even want to say it, but that in order not to ruin it, but that my kids seem to be healthy for a week, healthy enough to go to kindergarten and school. Not just enough. They have recovered. And I hope it stays that way, because it's been, if you've followed along for a few episodes, you know, it's been quite a, challenge those last few months. So now that they're not home and I can squeeze an hour and a half out of the day, I wanted to sit down immediately to talk to you about what I've been knitting, what I've been mending, what I've been thinking about knitting, what I want to cast on desperately, what I've been reading, what I've been watching, like all those things. Okay. Okay, why don't I start with what I'm wearing? I am wearing, you will probably recognize it, the Ziri sweater. It's been all the craze about, I want to say 5 years ago. I think I knitted it 5 years ago. And yeah, I have several thoughts about this project. First of all, the yarn is Rerum Natura. I have no idea what the colorway is, but I'll link the project page for this. So this is, I hope you can see. So the pattern is a sort of a leaf structure that goes all the way. So the yoke and that leaf pattern goes all the way around. It is, it's maybe not the most beginner friendly pattern, but once you figure out the stitch, which is really not hard to do, it's just 2 stitches that you need to memorize, and they are, combined in different ways so as to create this pattern. So it's not hard. It's fun to knit, even though the pattern where you have to, I don't really remember, but you have to go knit 2 together in one direction or the other, or knit 2 together and then knit the first or second stitch again, something like that, so as to slightly twist them. Over time, that was quite a strain on my shoulders, but that is often an issue for me. So I don't know if it's the same for others. But that's my experience. But the yoke only goes up until here, and then it's just stockinette. The yarn is a dream. So the yarn is the Rerum Natura. As I told you, it's a non-superwash yarn. It is so amazing. It is really light. It is very light, I feel, very airy somehow. And I wore this next to skin, like with no shirt underneath, and it does not itch or scratch or anything at all for me. I mean, people are different, but this is really so very soft. I can honestly not imagine it being described as scratchy. That would be my recommendation. If you need something non-superwash that you can really wear next to skin, and that is really such a dream to both knit and wear, that's it. So you see, it's got a beautiful stitch definition, and yeah, I've recently had to mend both the cuffs because for some reason they came undone, and I think maybe you can see, I don't know, I redid this, the very top, so the bind off. I think the yarn had worn thin. I don't know why that was, but it's like one stitch was suddenly split apart. So I don't know what happened there, but maybe it had worn thin. I don't know. And I think there are other areas here that might need surgery sometime down the road. And I assume it's because it's the bottom of the wrist, and it gets more friction than this part right here. I don't know, but I mended it. I still had a little bit of yarn left. I like to not use up all the scraps of a garment entirely in a different project, but to keep just the tiniest amount, like, I don't know, 2 meters or something, just the tiniest little ball for mending, so that I have enough to fix a situation such as this and have it be invisible. I mean, if you saw it, it wouldn't matter. Like, you can always get a green or blue yarn that will somehow match, and nobody will notice, and also it doesn't matter. But I like to have a teeny tiny little bit left so that I can do surgery on my garments. Yeah, what else can I say about this garment? So you see how this this is a collar that holds up a little bit, so it doesn't lie flat, but it stands up a little bit, which I don't mind. I sort of like the look of that. Oh, and you can see that I'm wearing my Ripple bralette by Jessie Made underneath, and which I made in the Paint Pastel Princess colorway by Homespun House. So, but you see, in the back, there are no short rows, so the back doesn't rise, right? But it's the exact same height as the front. And since the chest isn't as curved as the back, the upper back, right? It almost droops a little bit to the back. So that, I find that a bit bothersome, because with this sweater, I almost always get chills in the neck. So when I put this on, I'm putting on a shawl of some sort, which I'm not wearing one now because I wanted to show you, and also I'm not that cold, but it's a warm garment in terms of the yarn is very warm. I think it was knit on I don't know, must have been a 4.5 millimeter needle. So that would be a size US 7. So it's warm, but the neck situation is not really ideal. There should have been short rows somehow, I think. But I wasn't an experienced enough knitter when I knit this to A, anticipate, and B, fix this. Like, because the pattern goes all the way to the collar, which is so pretty that I wouldn't have just inserted plain short rows in stockinette, but I would have, if I were to knit this again, I would try and incorporate short rows in pattern, sort of to develop the pattern further in those rows that I knit and reknit as they get shorter and shorter, or longer and longer, whichever way, depending on the direction that you're coming from it. I think this was knit top down. Yeah, I didn't do that at the time. I don't know. I'm sure I also didn't have the brain space, but Is that how you say it? The capacity, you know what I mean. But I didn't know that it, how essential it might be. Okay, but that's what I'm wearing. And I have two finished, I'm sorry, I have two finished objects to show you. So the first finished object that I have are my Stripey Zauberball socks that I had sort of half finished last time around, a little bit more. I think the second sock was cast on. So this is the pair. There you go. So this is the sock that I had already finished, and the other one is the new one. And I have a comment about this. So I'm going to first talk about this sock right here. So I used scraps for everything. So the pink and purple are scraps from just my sock yarn collection. I think I used these on my daughter's advent calendar because I knit her a little mitten advent calendar, which you can see in previous episodes, but I don't know that I used all of the scrap colors in the calendar. I'm not sure anymore. But anyway, so this is just scrap yarn. The blue, which I'm going to say is the main color of the sock, so the one that I also used for the heel, is either Jawohl or Feculana Avetta, which I don't know which one it is, but one of just a commercial standard solid, sturdy sock yarn. And also solid as for the color. Yeah. There you go. I knit a heel flap and gusset with just a slip stitch detail, and that is just sort of my go-to standard repertoire heel. I held this blue yarn double with, and that tells me it was Jawohl sock yarn with the extra little spool of yarn that it comes with, that is supposed to reinforce the heel. So a thin strand of yarn that you're supposed to hold double, or that you have the option to hold double for the heel to make it stronger. So I held these double for just this little portion. And as for the rest, I used up the rest of a very sort of, as you can see, I don't know, baby colored or bubblegummy colored Zauberball by Schoppel, which I had in my stash. I'd used it on my blanket, which you can see back here, or on other things. Yeah, I actually made a baby jacket, a baby surprise baby jacket, the Elizabeth Zimmerman one, for a friend. Yeah, and so I used up the leftovers, and I thought I had more of those. So I thought it was just, I didn't think I had more as in an extra skein, but more as in more grams left in that leftover. But, I was wrong. So the second sock, and both of those were knit on 2.25 millimeter needles, which is a US size 1. I have a little cheat sheet from my local yarn store where they have the corresponding needle sizes in both the metric and imperial system. So I have used 2 scrap colors again. So the tip is the same color and the cuff is different on the 2 socks because I didn't have enough of the pink. I did the same thing with the heel, obviously. And I knit the rest of my Zauberball scrap up until somewhere around here. And then I added in the new. And you can go back to my previous episode, which is where I detail sort of my method behind that particular madness, because I thought, okay, no problem. I have other Zauberballs, other Zauberbälle that I can just take those colors out of, because they always have such wide spectrum that I think fit the bill color-wise. And I think I did a good enough job with this yellow, but I'm really not happy with this red. And then I went back to a color that fits that other color spectrum much better. But this red, I think, it really stands out. Because if you compare, it is much too obviously a fall color, like a really rusty, warm red. I'm not sure that was such a good idea. Yeah, that's my one thought about the sock, that I would like to somehow get rid of this. And I'm not going to snip it. I'm not going to cut this out and reknit. So this is not happening. Don't you worry. I'm not as serious about this. Also, I'm not keeping the socks anyway. And someone else, because I don't particularly need them. So I knew that I was knitting them as gifts. And I tend to only keep socks when I really cannot resist, because it's a very special, beautiful yarn, or I don't know for what reason, but somehow I think my glasses are always crooked. They seem to be just fine. And then I see myself on camera, or I watch the video later rather, and I'm like, what is going on? That's so weird. That is so strange to me. Anyway, I'm not going to redo this either way. And someone else might not mind or, even realize the mismatch that I see. But it bothers me a little bit. So had I realized earlier how this is not really what I thought it was going to be, I would have gone back 10 rows or whatever. But I only thought this when I was up here, and I was so desperate to get them off the needles. And then I thought, whatever. And I just left it like this. And I think it's definitely okay. It's just not perfect. But then what is, right? Okay, then I have another finished object that you've never even seen in progress. Because I cast on and knit and bound off, and that was the end of that story. So I knit, I can undo it because it wasn't, I can undo this. So, okay, I knit myself a headband. And it's called Simone headband. And I have no idea what the designer is called. Emily something, I think. I don't know. Or maybe not Emily, but Emilie, because maybe that was French. I don't know. I'm going to link her down below for sure. So you knit something like this, right? You cast on, knit the entire tube. So on one side, it's all stockinette. That's the one that's going to be attached to your forehead, to your skin. Forehead, around the, And the other side is this cable pattern. Can you tell? Yeah, maybe like this. You can see. There you go. So, and then you finish with that exact same thing. And then what you're going to do is you tie a knot. And hold on. And then when you put it on, which I'm not going to do now, but when you do, so you tie a knot and then you put it on. And I mean, you can leave it like this and have it be very cute and girly. On me, it looks a little weird, I thought. So I tuck those under, and that is how it's presented in the pattern, but obviously you can use it as a bow, right? And then you tuck it under and you have your headband. So that's sort of what it looks like. So this goes on top. So you have this little knot in the middle of your headband. And then it's all nice and wide to cover your ears. And because the fabric is double, it's really a nice thick layer. So I've worn this, I've only finished it a few days ago, but I've worn this twice, I think. And it was, well, the yarn, I'm going to talk about that in a second, is really gorgeous. And it was just so cozy. Like it's such a fun knit. I can really recommend it. So that's what it looks like. Yeah. So that's on my needles, off my needles, before I could say so. And oh no, I have to show you. So the yarn, man. Well, now you have to just imagine the individual strands because they're all woven in and I haven't. I meant to keep the ends that I snipped off to show you, but I didn't. And now I'm not going to go rummaging through my stash down the corridor. So, so this has, and I hope you can see, this has a very heathered look to it, right? There you go. And that's because it consists of 3 strands of yarn. So I included 2, so it's all Isaiah yarn. Is that how you say that? So a Danish brand. And 1 strand that is fingering weight is a very dusty pink. So the lighter flecks in here. And that is their Highland wool, I think in the rose colorway. You can find it on my Ravelry page, that's linked. And the other is a lace weight. So both are, no, that's a Highland wool, so that is wool. The other is the lace weight that I held double. So 2 strands of the lace and 1 of the Highland wool is an alpaca. I think the colorway is sky, interestingly, because this is purple. And so that would be the purple flecks in there. Right? And both of those colorways are heathered to begin with. So it's not, in the beginning I was worried that it was going to be all marled and will not have the look that I was going for. But this looks way less busy than I was scared it was gonna, if that makes sense to you. So it isn't as marled, but the heathered look sort of binds it together. And maybe the fact that 2 individual lace strands had the option to wrap around that other strand of yarn individually made a more coherent or cohesive color, maybe, if that makes sense to you, rather than holding 2 yarns together. Maybe 3 makes it less marled. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to express here, but also I don't know how else to say it. Anyway, so I'm happy with the way it turned out. It's a very simple cable pattern. I did use a cable needle reluctantly because I'm not all for cable needles because they annoy me because they slow me down. I don't enjoy that part of cabling, that you're slowed down. But I found cabling without a cable needle, which is what I usually do, a little tricky here because of the 3 strands. 3, not 2, 3. Because of the 3 strands that I thought I can only lose, sort of. Like it's bound to happen that I only catch 2, and that will annoy me. I didn't want to get annoyed with that. So I just cabled with a cable needle. I used a 4mm cable needle, which corresponds to size US 6, because that is the only one that I have, I think. And I think I knit the entire thing on a 3.75. So that would be a US 5. Again, it's all on my project page, but so that's another finished item. And then we can move on to what I'm currently knitting. I had shown you last time that I was knitting on a DK weight pair of socks for the first time in forever. Like I have knit heavier socks before, but that was quite a long time ago. No, hold on. I did maybe 6 years ago, something in that neighborhood. When Taylor of the Wool Needles Hands podcast published her cocktail socks pattern, I test knit this for her. Those are DK as well. Yeah, those must have been the last ones. I knit a handful of them, but ever since then, and I think it's only been fingering weight socks. And now I found myself in this situation where I thought, okay, so I have these Sauber balls, these in a DK weight, that have not yet found their purpose. And actually, so I had bought this with the intention of making stripy socks. And I bought them in October. And I went home, and because, what is this? And because I had, because I wound, is it wound or wound? I think because I wound off some of the yarn to send to my friend Claire for our Advent. Hi Claire. I had to weigh the entire ball to begin with so that I had an idea of, when to stop. And I did that, and I realized it wasn't a 50-gram ball after all, which the label says, but it was 42. And then I thought, hold on, 42, that's almost 20%. That's a whole lot. So why is this a 42-gram ball? And that just annoyed me. But I bought another in a different color, in a green color, I think. And it was the same. It wasn't 42, but then it was like 45 grams or something like that. I just wrote to them and said, this is my experience, and I don't think it should necessarily be the experience. And then they wrote back explaining a whole lot, saying, well, 42 is almost impossible. And then I thought, well, but that's still what happened, right? And they said they're going to replace the one that was so significantly off. Which that's not why I wrote, but I thought, okay, so be my guest. I don't mind. And they sent another of those balls along. So I don't actually know which one it is that I started now. The one that was still intact or the one that I'd already broken into. Anyway, so it is Shopple Edition 3. So that's their DK. I think it is a non-superwash. Can that be? No, it's a superwash. And the colorway is Tante Emma, or the number for that is 2361. And I thought I'm gonna start those stripy socks and just see which stitch count is good for me for knitting DK white socks. So I have 13 stitches on each needle, so that makes 52 stitches total. I cast on with a 3mm needle, and I just knit a vanilla sock. And now I wish I had given the leg a little bit more structure, but I can just do this for the next pair. I'm not going to wear them in shoes anyway, because it never works for me. I can never squeeze my foot into the shoe with a woolen sock on. I don't know. It never works for me. But so these are going to be worn around the house. So it really doesn't matter whether the leg is really the tiniest bit slouchy. It's not slouchy. It's a fit. It's just that I know with time and wear, it's going to loosen up a little bit. But I'm not worried about that at all. So that's a sock. I think I might keep that. And the other, I haven't told you about the other yarn. That's this cake that I'm pulling from. It is, what can you call the color? It's not beige, it's not white. I don't know. It's a color with very light dark gray and pink specks in it. And this is, hold on, there's someone at the door. So yeah, sorry, I had to run to the door because the delivery guy rang. Okay, now, where was I? I don't know. I told you about my sock. Oh yeah, so the yarn that I've just shown you before the break is a non-superwash yarn. I think the base is called Griffin Decay. And my friend Debbie from Canada dyed it. Debbie of, oh my God, not Debbie of Legacy Fiber Arts. Oh my goodness. Debbie of the Loving Path dyed the yarn, and the colorway is Reality Bites. So that is a contrast color that I'm using. I've had her yarn for a while, and I'm sorry, and I thought it's time that I use it and get some wear out of it. And so, hold on, what's happening here? Okay, now, and so here it is. This is my sock, which I'm knitting on 3mm DP ends. So that would be a 2.5, 2.5 US. What's wrong here? That's wrong. Okay. So it's a little hard to show you now with the needles in, but there it is. So here's my little owl. It keeps me company, my little progress keeper. I'm showing you the sock upside down. Why? This is how it's supposed to be. So, I just love the yarns very much. They're very squishy but not floppy. Yet squishy yet sturdy. They have such a cozy feel to them. Like I really can't wait to put those on, which is I think why I'm going to keep them. And I'm just really on a Zaubaball kick, I think, where I want to knit those that I have and just enjoy the gradients on the stripes as they come about. Pair a fun other color so that I can use up some of my stash. Because I really, hold on, what am I doing? I really want to reduce my stash a little bit. I don't have a big stash. I just put together a swap package and I realized I do not have a big stash. But the fewer, how can I put this? Somehow older skeins that I've never used, I have left, the better, because they are meant to be used, right? And I don't see a point in buying stuff and never using it, you know? That just doesn't make any sense. And everything that I buy has to be produced, right? And it always comes at a cost. And that's not just a financial cost, it's also an environmental cost. So I think I have to use up the stuff that I have. And I have also, like, this is not new. I have also in the past become very conscious about which projects do I buy yarn for. And I try to not buy a single skein of yarn anywhere anymore. So, but those that I have, I do want to use up. So I thought the like stripy socks are just always such a good option because they, well, they can go in my gift pile or I can keep them, or I don't know. This is never the issue, finding a recipient, right? And I can use up a single color, like a solid color that I have a lot of scraps off, and stripy, self-striping yarn or what's it called? Gradient yarn, like with the zebra balls. So I have many of them that I still have leftovers from. So the one that I've just shown you with the fingering weight yarn, so this was just a tiny leftover, but I have bigger chunks, so a more of a substantial ball. And I do want to use those up. And then I saw on Instagram that someone had dug out all sorts of fingering weight sock yarn leftovers, and they're holding one strand throughout, double with the individual scraps. So they hold two double, creating a scrappy sock, but the super scrappiness of that is sort of toned down by that one strand that goes all the way through, right? That gives it structure and just mutes it a little bit, which isn't necessary. I don't have anything against the loud sock, but it's also fun, right? It's also a fun style element, sort of. And I thought, that's cool because it gives you a DK weight sock. So especially with scraps, they're not always, like, I'm not always super attached to some of my sock yarn scraps. Like, I don't necessarily want to dedicate all the time in the world to using up that scrap, right? But making them into a DK weight sock, they will go by so fast. And be fun. So I will be able and enjoy the yarns I'm using up, even if they are not the yarns that I would necessarily gravitate towards now. Does that make sense to you? Because sometimes you have old stash, right? So, and I thought, but for those two, that's not really the case. But for other yarns, I have another Tsababai, shocking, that looks like this. I think I've shown you this one last week, but that was before I dug in and cut out some yarn that I needed for my other sock. So I got this for my Cozy Memories blanket once. It's a crazy Tsababai, and it is called, the colorway is called Sanduhr. So that would be color 2332. And I am going to hold this double. So once I finished my Stripey DK socks, let me squeeze this in here. I'm going to hold this double with, and I hope this is enough, with this little, this little leftovers. I've made socks with that before. I recall the colorway is beach, but what else is this? Hold on. Beach, yeah. Tammy Wee colors. I don't know. This was a gift. I don't know how this is pronounced. So that's a sort of a mystery scrap. I know where it comes from, but I haven't bought it, so I don't know how that dye is pronounced. So I'm going to hold these double. And then I'm going to just use those leftovers of some Regia Perfect with, yeah, I'm going to just use those for the heels, cuffs, and toes, something like that. So, yeah, that's, the yarn is flying in all directions. So that's what I'm going to do next when in terms of DK socks, when I have those off my needles. Oh, now for a fun project. Okay, I have started, and no, hold on. I need to start by reiterating how I enjoy the Knitting Traditions podcast, which to me is a recent connection, sort of. Like, I wasn't aware of that podcast, even though she has so many followers. I don't know. It wasn't really on my radar. And of course, I'm mid-row. But yeah, so she uses a lot of alpaca yarn, which made me think, I still have the alpaca that I bought, I think when my first son was about a year old. He's 7 now. I did make something with that, but I ordered so much of that yarn, and I have every now and then I've pondered, like, what can I do with that? What am I going to do with that? And I for a moment I thought I'll make it into a sweater, but it is so soft, and alpaca is sort of not the sturdiest fiber in terms of stitch definition and how it holds up. And I didn't want, well, I felt that the fabric that this was getting me was going to be too relaxed, sort of. It wasn't going to have enough bounce, right? And there are patterns for that, that, call for this sort of yarn, but I wasn't really inspired. And anyway, so this is it's called Fair Alpaca. It's a DK weight yarn. The colorway is NFA01, and it's just their undyed alpaca. And also, I wasn't just inspired to use Alpaca by Inga of the Knitting Traditions podcast, but also to use those natural colors. She's all for the browns, and I'm not. It's just not a color that I wear. Which, if you are someone who knits all the oranges and browns and rusts and whatnot, go for it. I'm sure it looks amazing on you. And you should really always go for the colors that you love. And if you have 5 sweaters of the same color, but you love that color, go for it. But I usually don't do browns. But I thought, okay, so what alpaca yarn do I have? And I don't have a lot. I have one from my Velacor that is a little orangey. So that was not going to happen for me. Then I have the purple alpaca that I also used for my headband that Maud had given me, a viewer of this podcast, who had sent along prizes, and I was supposed to keep one. So that's the one that I chose. So thank you again. It was good to put to good use already, but I obviously have leftovers, and I pondered whether I should use that yarn. But it's a lace weight, and the other is the alpaca that I'm using is a DK, and I thought, so I'm gonna have to hold this quadruple to somehow manage, and that was not going to happen. So I pulled out my last alpaca option, and that is another Isaiah yarn, Alpaca 2. I cannot tell you the name of that colorway, but I'm going to try and put it on the, whoops. I'm going to try and put it on my Ravelry page. So that was the contrast color for my Velacor that I will have shown you in my fall sweaters episode. So if you haven't seen that, you may go back and just rewatch that, or wait until I have it on. But I don't know if it's happening, to be honest. I sometimes wear it around the house, but I'm going to knit a new Velacor in the same yarn, but different colors. And I am thinking of gifting the one that I have. I just don't know to whom, because I don't really know that many people who love wearing orange and browns and are my size. Well, you don't care about that. You want to see the shawl, I assume. So here it is. So that's what and now I'm stuck mid-row. So that's what I cast on. So this is a shawl, just like a simple increase on one side only shawl. So I knit I'm knitting on a 3.75 millimeter needle. So again, that would be a size 5 US, right? Right. On my Chaogu red lace needles, which may be my favorite ones. I really have to say that. They're amazing. The cord is amazing too. It's sturdy and yet so flexible. Anyway, So I'm changing colors every other row, and I am knitting an I-cord edge just because I want it to have a finished look instead of the garter bumps. I just felt like it. So I am slipping the last 3 stitches of every row with the yarn in front. And then I turn the work and I just knit 3 stitches, and that will create a lovely rounded I-cord, so a rounded edge sort of. And on the other side, this is where I increase. I have my little progress keeper dangling, which is still very Christmassy, but I thought now I can still use it and feel, see, and feel all cozy with it. And yeah, and I go back, knit the I-cord, and then I insert the second color. And what it does is when you only increase on one side, so always here where the beginning of round is for me, it will eventually, I really shouldn't have stopped mid-row, create a triangle shape. So you will tilt it, and the increase edge is going to be the one that you can just wrap around your neck, and it will automatically create a triangle shawl, a triangular shawl. And the stripes will go a little bit diagonally, which is an effect that I like. Maybe you can tell that I like stripes, and I enjoy these diagonal stripes, right? I have another shawl that I've knit, I don't know, years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. Or even maybe that was even longer ago, it doesn't matter. And I had very big like color blocking stripes in that. I did it the same way, and they go like this, and I really enjoy that. It just looks fun. So I went for that. I'm trying to stash bust a little bit, and the yarn is amazing. It is so soft in my hands. It is so delightful and delicious and squishy, and just, I want to knit this so I can bundle up in it, right? I think eventually I'm going to go for bigger stripes, so 2 garter ridges before I change colors, and I might knit the ending in just the alpaca. I want to say white. It's not really white, but you know, in that natural color. And I might also include a, what is it called? An edging, a sort of, well, not brim. What is that? A sort of an edging where you add a certain border, right, that you knit on. A border, maybe that's what I mean, a border. Because there are lace borders or all kinds of, you know, and those would also go like across. So that might be a fun look. I'm still thinking about that because it's going to be a few days before I reach that length that I need. But yeah, that yarn is a delight. And I can only encourage you to give your stash a little love, because you'll be amazed at what you find there. Even if you don't have a big stash, like I don't really have a huge stash, but still some things are forgotten when you, not forgotten, but you don't really, you never play with the yarn. And that's just a shame. And then you take it out and find a project for it, and it gives you so much joy. Like, why would I run around and buy a new skein of yarn if these give me so much joy? Yeah, so I'm planning on making that shawl. It's not going to use up all the natural color decay that I have. So I might make another one with other contrasting stripes. And really use up all my leftovers, or maybe my alpaca 2, so the brown, is going to be enough for 2 shawls, because I have an entire skein of that left, because I bought too many for my Velcor. And since I'm not going to make anything else with it for me, I might as well make 2 of those shawls and just gift one. because why not? And many of my friends have like big birthdays coming up this year. So why not have a shawl to gift? I don't know. I'm just gonna see what I see. Then, speaking of shawls, I dug out a longer whip. And that has been languishing. Well, I cannot really tell you why. Because it required a little bit of brain space because I'm designing this. Maybe that was why. At the same time, I'm also stuck mid-row. What is this? I don't usually do that, so I'm just going to finish that row. At the same time, I don't have to do an awful lot for that design because the design is ready. I just have to knit it and sort of check it for errors or mistakes, but I know that the pattern that I wrote down is correct. I mean, because I have knit a whole, really a handful of repeats, and before that intermission, and I know that it was, I remember thinking, so this is not going to be the issue because I have that figured out and it's all correct, what I wrote down. I'm now actually looking for a tech editor because the tech editor that I had before for a different pattern, she says she doesn't tech edit at the moment, and she recommended someone else to me. So I wrote to her, and now I'm going to see what I see. So I'm going to wait till I hear back. And now I'm at the end of that row, and here you go. I'm not going to show it in all that much detail or explain a whole lot because this is going to be a pattern release somewhere down the road, but I thought I'm just gonna have to finish this because it doesn't make any sense not finishing it. And that's what it is. See, so this is going to be a triangular shawl, stripey again, because that seems to be a theme. It looks very busy now on camera because it's so scrunched up. And it's knitting garter, but there's a little bit of detail happening, which also, when it's so scrunched up, it's not only that I don't really want to show, it's that I can't really show because now you don't see the difference, and the lighting is bad for a bit more moody colors, but I can talk to you about the colors. So these are them. So as I see it on screen, this one is reproduced correctly, but this is a richer purple, not as red, but more purpley, more blue purple. I don't know. But so these two are the colors that I chose. This is Frida Fuchs yarn. So this is a Berlin Dyer team. And where are my tags? They're right here. And I chose their Wonneproppen Decay base. So again, decay, which is unusual for me. That I have 3 decay projects on the needles because I don't knit that much decay. I'm usually fingering weight all the way through, but so that's them, and that is them as well. So Frida Fuchs, Wonneproppen Decay, and one color, this darker one, is Schwarzes Basilikum, and that might be more accurate. I don't know. And the other I don't have to look up because that is called Mariendistel. I'm going to put the information below so you can find that if you want to. And so this, I have another skein each. These I did not by myself, but I knit a swatch and I sent them a picture, and I said I would like to design this with your yarn because I think it would be perfect. I knew their yarn before. And I asked them if they would give me yarn support for that pattern, and they said, yeah, sure. Isn't that fun? And I was really very happy about this. I felt like a proper designer, which of course I'm not, but I was very grateful. I am very grateful for that. So that is where I got my yarn, my yarns. And I want to finally, it's not like it was forever ago, but I want to finally, after this hiatus, knit this project up because I know that the pattern is as good as written. I want to send it to a tech editor, and meanwhile, I can knit my sample and then I can take it from there. But I want to get going with that. And also, I feel like if they've given me yarn support, which is really very nice and generous, I want to, get that pattern out. I want to do something with the yarn and not just have it lying around because that would be stupid. And so that gives me a little kick in the butt to get this finished, or just work on this more so I'll get this finished as soon as possible. I'm not on a race, like I don't have to finish super fast, but I just want this designing process to always be like in movement, going and not stuck. And I have this project in a super special bag, so the others are just tote bags, but this is a fun bag that with leather handles. So it's really a proper bag that I received. Where's the tag? So this is made in my backyard. And there is one little pocket inside, and otherwise it's just a beautiful tote bag. And this was included in my last fiber share package that I received pre-pandemic. Kim sent it to me. Hi, if you're watching, hi Kim. This is such a beautiful bag. I use it for special projects, and it's a very generous size. So I love this so much. It is amazing. Then I can give you feedback on the Hedgehog Fibers Tweedy front, because last episode I was talking about how I bought this yarn. Finally, I sort of gave in to that desire because I'd seen it on other podcasts, I'd seen it in stores, and I thought I like the idea behind that yarn because it's 50% recycled, because they use leftovers and their wastes from their waste yarn from spinning and dyeing and whatnot. And I like tweed. I really do like tweed yarn. And I thought, I want to try it so badly. I've thought about it for about a year or something like that, so I can indulge. But I didn't buy just the yarn just willy-nilly like that, because I don't do that anymore, right? Remember? So I thought I can really see it in my mind's eye how I want for it to be a very casual top-down raglan sweater. Nothing fancy about it, not oversized, but not super snug. Just a real sweatshirt sort of sweater that I can throw on, and that goes with everything, really. That is a woolen sweater, but not super heavy, so it's not going to be a winter sweater. But that is to say that it's going to fit, many weather condition that we have here in Germany. So if it's not too heavy, but also contains wool. Yeah. So that is the little swatch that I made. I'm not a patient swatcher. This is as much as you can squeeze out of me, except for my festive yoke sweater. If you remember, if you've been here for few episodes, I knit a really long piece and in the round. So I know that if I'm going to knit in the round, which I am, I'm supposed to swatch in the round, but I can't bring myself to do it. I don't know. I know it's stupid, but my knitting and my purling don't really differ. It's the same size. So it's not, there are knitters who have way larger purl stitches than knit stitches, or maybe the other way around, but that's how I expect for it to be. Also what I've heard from others, but that's not the case for me. Sometimes I will have to hold the knit side in my right hand and the yarn, and on the purl side in my left hand, so as not to have the stitches go like this, because that sometimes happens with me. I don't know why. I don't think that I tug on the yarn so much, but then again, other people don't really seem to have that problem. I don't know what it is. And when I say holding in the right hand, I'm still gonna knit continental. I'm not gonna let go and throw. I'm still gonna just flick and pick up with the needle and not have a huge motion. So for me, it's the same as with the left side, just on the right side. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So, and I made, here, you can see, 4 yarn overs to indicate that I used a needle, 4mm needle, which would be a US size 6, right? Right. And that's how I know. And then I washed it and then I pinned it. So I blocked it, and I didn't block it, but I just pinned it down so it wouldn't curl together too much, curl up, but that it would be a little stretched, because the end fabric is going to have a certain weight, and that alone is going to stretch the thing, right? So I wanted to not go too easy on this, but also not be too rough. And so that gives me an idea of how many stitches I need to cast on, etc., etc. Not that I've done the math, but I've at least knit the swatch to get this project going, because I really want to knit the sweater out of this yarn. But the thing is, my mind is exploding with all the things that I want to cast on. I don't know what to do about it, because I would like to cast on 2 projects a day. No problem. That would really not be an issue. Also, and not that this is something entirely new, but right now it is really extreme for me. I want to knit every day, all day. If I didn't absolutely have to do other things, I wouldn't do them. Like, I would sit on my couch happily for 10 hours and just, just get a little bit of food and drink, and then, just be there and knit all the way through my projects. That is really what I would love to do right now. I can feel it in my bones. It's really, I have the itch. I feel so, what's the word, laden with creativity. Like I'm loaded up, something like that. And it needs to find, like, it needs to be put into action, right? I just want to knit all these things, not because I want the fancy sweaters in my wardrobe, but because I want to make them, and I want to make them. And also other things. I found a really cute cowl that I want to make for my boys, because they're so, especially the older one, they're so into dinosaurs, right? And it's a cowl that I'm going to link down below for you, because I don't have an image in it, don't know what it's called, but I made a screenshot when I saw it, because I thought, oh, amazing. And I'm going to have to buy Rauma Finul for that, and knit them a cowl that is just, it's not supposed to be floppy, but supposed to stand up a bit, I assume. And when I watched the Knitting Traditions podcast, I got inspired to knit it in a non-superwash yarn and felt it just a little bit so that it stands up and is maybe not entirely, but more windproof, because they don't really want to wear a scarf, and they don't really want to wear a cowl, which I make them put one on, or a shawl. They never really want to wear them. So I thought, okay, so I have to come along with something that looks cool to them. And this is a cowl that has dinosaur bones as color work on them. And it's so intricate and so beautiful. So like real skeletons of like all the different dinosaurs, or an individual piece of like a bone or a skull or whatever it is that as a found on a excavation site, or whatever you call this. And it's arranged. It's so fun. When I saw this, I immediately thought, oh my goodness, I have to make these. So I want to make time for that. Then I thought, with all the individual, it's not like it's so many, but it's like 5 or 6 maybe individual skeins of yarn that are so precious, that carry very fond memories, but that I don't know what to do with, because they're too delicate to make socks with them. Also, I would have to make a lot of socks with them to use those skeins of fingering weight up. I don't want them to go to waste, but I don't want to make all of them into garments just because I cannot envision how they would fit in that sense, or like what sort of garment I would want to produce. And maybe that's going to change, but with an individual skein, you can only do so much. And I don't want to knit 10 hats for myself because I'm not going to wear them. Also, I don't want to knit something with this special yarn and then give it away because I want to keep the yarn but knit up in something. And I'm really, really, really considering knitting another Marled Magic shawl. That's what it's called, right? By Stephen West. So the individual marled, the original marled piece that came out in the MCAL, which I didn't do. I knit this later. I'm not a mystery knit along person, I don't think. Also with Stephen West, I don't always like the designs of the mystery knit alongs, but this one I thought was just stunning. And I knit it, and I don't exaggerate when I say it's one of the most fun knits of my life. If not the most fun. It could be. But it was so incredibly fun to make that I always knew I was going to knit that again. So I am debating putting together those fancy single skeins and turn them into that. And also include a little mohair because I have different leftovers. And in a Stephen West pattern, you can always throw in some mohair, right? I mean, you always can, but there is a special like invitation there. And if you've knit it, there is a big panel. The first panel is just right here. If you put on the shawl, it's just right in the center. And obviously I knit the large version, which I always do. And that is a lace panel, which is the only thing I can criticize about this pattern because I would have gone for brioche or something more voluminous and not at the center have something that is a little floppy and sort of doesn't hold up as much as the rest of the cowl shawl. And I was debating modifying that and knitting a brioche section. Then again, I didn't have issues knitting brioche, but I don't know because it has to have this, what's it called? Parallelogram shape, sort of. I'm not that confident that I can recreate that in brioche just like that. I mean, you can try and rip back, but I don't want to get going, you know? And so I was thinking maybe with the initial panel, maybe I'll put a bit of mohair in there to give it extra volume. So 2 strands plus mohair, right? To have the gaps fill up a bit, so the lace eyelets fill up a bit with the fluff of the mohair so that it stands up a bit more or has just a bit more volume, or so just so as to give it a bit more volume and a little bit more fabric in that area where I think the fabric tends to be a bit weaker than the rest of the shawl. So that's something I'm debating making. Then I want to make leg warmers for myself because I realized that I used to wear them. Don't anymore. I also don't have any, but leg warmers that just go up to the knee. Because I tend to get cold at home sometimes because we don't have the heating on all that much. And I keep thinking if I wore leg warmers, I would be so much warmer. So it's not a huge project to knit just a set of leg warmers, but you just have to do it, right? So I went to cast those on. So let's see if that is going to happen. So now I'm going to have to check my list again of things that I want to knit. Oh yeah, and the Gryffindor mittens. Do I have them with me? I do. I think. No. Where are they? Here, ha! That's the project bag that I'm going for. So I have this little MENDING project bag, and I want to make Gryffindor mittens because I have the yarn for it. They're called Brave at Heart. And, okay, I have a teeny tiny little picture from the pattern. So I'm gonna be careful and fold it so that you cannot see the pattern because it's paid for, right? So sorry for it being a little crumpled, but these are them. So isn't that so fun with the lion with the lion on the mitten? And I don't know what's happening on the inside. Oh, there's another image because she has a design for every house, right? There. So she has the badger and the snake and the whatever the other thing is, raven. And when I say she, who are we talking about? Because I don't know. I'm gonna have to put this below because I don't now know the designer's name. It says Paper Tiger, but I don't know who this is. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna put it in the description box for you. And the yarns that I'm using are super special because I just haven't tried them ever, and they feel amazing, and the colors are so gorgeous, if you ask me. So not maybe the perfect Gryffindor colors, but I don't care. There you go. So this is Biche Bûche. I don't know how you say that. I thought Biche Bûche, but then I'm not so sure. So this is a really gorgeous sort of golden color, as you can see. And this is a burgundy red. Very, very gorgeous. These together, oh, I think, can you see that? The red doesn't come across as strong. It's a sort of purpley red, I think, but red enough to go for in the Gryffindor mittens. See, I've put everything together. I have the needles ready. I have the yarn ready. I have my pattern ready, and the bag and the tag. So the red is called dark burgundy, and Biche Bûche le Petit Lamb's Wool. So this must be a non-superwash. Yeah. And the yellow is called yellow mustard. And this is the tag. Right. So I snagged those last year in fall, I think. Beginning of fall, with this very project in mind. So I'm going to have to cast those on eventually, but like, how do you do that with all the other things going? Not to speak of the sweaters that I have on hold, like my striped sweater, my Christmas sweater, the color, all color work one, the sea glass sweater. Now I want to cast on a new sweater, and I would always be an advocate for follow your heart and, be creative. The creativity lies not in pushing yourself through a project to finish it, by all means, even though sometimes you do want to just get to the end of that, and that, has its place. But generally, I think the creative urge is to create things and explore things and try material and color and colors and patterns and I don't know what, different needle sizes, tools, different needles, knit the same thing again and again and again in different iterations. I don't know what, and you have to go for that, I don't want to put restrictions on my creative expression in some way, because that doesn't make any sense at all to me. Then again, within the restriction, more creativity can arise, So when I say I'm not going to buy all the yarns, but just be always re-inspired by my stash, or else get rid of some of it, because if I'm never inspired to use it, I'm not likely to ever use it, right? And that's also okay. You're allowed to change your mind, okay? So that's not a problem. But then it would be sensible to give someone else the chance to do something with it and let the yarn live its life, sort of, and not sit on it. But how does the sentence start? I don't know. So, but I say, like I always say, don't buy all the things. Be inspired by the things that you have, because that's where like the creative sparks come from, from limitation. At the same time, I don't see a point in limiting your works and projects and works in progress. If you cast on the things that you really feel the need in your bones to cast on, and that's always a good idea. And I trust that there's going to be a phase this year when I want to finish all the things, and when the creativity lies in clearing off the needles and finishing off the pieces, so that you have that sense of accomplishment of, yes, I've been super creative, but look what I made, right? It's not only been the process, but at some point in your creative journey, it's also about the product, right? So these times are going to come, no doubt. Okay, so I'm not going to restrain myself too much, because I know that creativity comes in different forms, that different phases are inevitably included in this entire thing. And by the way, speaking of creativity, I have become a patron of Legacy Fiber Arts, Chelsea and Sue, who are now embarking on another Patreon journey, not just with Chelsea Makes, but also Legacy Fiber Arts. And I have always loved when Sue taught in the podcast, just for a bit, for like just a few minutes, talked about creativity and about how she used to feel shame almost for wanting to sit down and knit all the time. And she thought she was lazy until she realized, no, I'm a creative. It's what I do. It's what I want. It's what I naturally want to do all day long. And when she talked about that, I always felt such a connection, like it's such, I was so interested, and I thought, say more. And so now they have created the Creative Seed podcast, or audio podcast too, where they talk about creativity and their creativity. And I have only just started listening for not even 20 minutes or something like that. But I am so intrigued. So if this is something you're struggling with, thinking about, interested in, that might be something to check out. So as for mending, I have mended tights and socks for my kids. And with a heavy heart, I threw away one pair of socks that belonged to my oldest son, because they were beyond repair. They just were. It's not, they weren't hand knit. They were store-bought cotton socks, and he had worn them so much. And I had mended them before, and then I had mended them again. And then now they were in a stage of, I would have basically had to knit the entire sole of the sock. But that's not something that you could easily do with the cotton sock that you bought in a store. And I thought, okay, I showed this to my husband and said, okay, so what am I going to do? I think this is beyond fixing. And he said, well, you have to know when to throw in the towel, when to just let it go, and to not dedicate your entire life to this one sock. So, and the other was just, the entire pair was really completely gone. And I thought, so this is ridiculous. Now I'm getting rid of this. But that is really the only case when I throw away also store-bought cotton socks, because I cannot stand it. I don't have it in me to just get rid of these socks. So I mended other socks, and I mended a pair of tights, with a dinosaur at the bottom. So those were so important. So they had to be mended ASAP. And I did that. And all was good. And then so that was for my youngest son, so my middle child. And he has this set of jeans, and these are sort of special because my mother-in-law sewed them for, well, then my oldest son, and now they're being passed down. So she included a fun fabric for the pockets. It's just an elastic, and she has included lining in there, and that's them. No pockets on the back, just plain. And I think this may have been made from jeans that we had, old jeans that my husband and I gave her, but it doesn't look like it. Maybe that was a jeans fabric that she bought. But she made so many pants for my oldest son when he was young. So she started when he was about a year old, and she continued. She still does it now, but now she makes the shorts for summer. Because now he also fits in regular sort of store-bought jeans, which I will try to get secondhand, but like just those that are on the market in whichever form. But they didn't used to fit him well. It was just always, I don't know, those jeans that you can wear, just pants for kids that you can find at, like, I don't know, H&M and stuff. I don't think they fit many kids. So they're not made for many body types. They're not made for different proportions. So that was, for a long time, that was an issue. But also not a problem because my mother-in-law could take care of it, and she made those pants. And eventually, and it's taken a while before that happened, the knee area was worn through, not only thin, but through. And so I had to sew on a patch. And so I took a leftover scrap of, old jeans and just sewed it on. So I closed the hole before, reinforced it, like sewed around by hand, not with a machine. Not that you necessarily have to do that. I don't think you have to. I just did it. And then I put on the patch. And I did the very same thing with his other pair of jeans, and he wears those two all the time. And they're also lined. So it's cold, so he has two sets of warm pants to wear, and they both have a new knee patch now. So that was what I mended. And now I can talk to you. Oh my God. Now it's getting interesting. No. Now I can talk to you about my current obsession. I'm going to try and be quick because I've been recording for quite a while, but I'm just going to hold up the books and you can see where this is going. Oh, if I manage, which I don't. Ta-da! So, I have said before that I know a thing or two about the British royal house. I've read stuff before, not as in tabloids, but I'm just very interested. Monarchies in general are so fascinating to me, because of how they've shaped history and how they continue to shape much of our today's, not necessarily culture, but how they prevail. Is that the word? I don't know. They just fascinate me because all of that, everything that's happening in monarchies is just at the same time so incredibly arbitrary and irrefutably has to be that way. It doesn't make any sense, but everything has to follow that form, and you can never, stray from that. You can never break with that. It is completely necessary and completely arbitrary at the same time. And I find it just fascinating. Monarchies fascinate me endlessly. Really, they really do. Um, and not as in the gossip, but as in the system. It's just fascinating to me. And so my friend Yasmin has translated or co-translated this book into German, which is why I have the German. So, and this is, well, it's not a super heavy book, but it's a few pages, and I haven't read it yet, but I really want to read it. It came out last fall, late last fall, well, still before Christmas, definitely. And I want to dig in this, but before, dig in too. It doesn't matter. Before, I am, currently reading this. So, Prince Harry's Spa. And I like Harry. Like I'm biased towards him just because I've always felt for him. Because I thought, oh God, that poor guy, his role must really suck. And now I see that it does. Did. Always did and still probably does. So this is a very new publication as far as I know. As soon as I saw it, I bought it. Like this was a no-brainer if ever there was one. And I'm not so far into it, like a good 50 pages, but oh man, I love it. I love it. I am very curious to see like what's going to happen is stupid, but how all the events are going to be told, because we know what happens if you followed a little bit. Many of the things that are going to happen in this book, we know. Then again, we don't as like a public because we've never had like insight, right? And I think people always think to know stuff about, especially the British royal family, because it's very much in the tabloids, and because the British tabloids are so very vicious, and they're so famous for that, etc., etc. But that we don't ever really, right? That is obvious. So it's very interesting to see what he has to say. I try to not be super biased, and I'm not, but I always felt for him. Even before Meghan and everything, I think he really doesn't have it easy there. And I mean, it's heartbreaking when you read that when Diana died, Prince Charles back then came to wake him up and sat by his bed and told him, you know, what, your mother died, she didn't make it. And then he sits with him for a few minutes and then he leaves the room. And this poor child is just left there alone all night. That alone is so horrible. I really felt for him. And I think, I don't know from what I've read now, and I mean, obviously this is written by a ghostwriter, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it is super well written. And then again, it is, because I have the feeling, again, 50 pages, but that ghostwriter really develops a certain sort of tone, and I want to use the word suspense, like writes suspensefully, but suspense is sort of not the right word in an autobiography, but you know that you want to read on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents about Spa for the time being. I really want to continue reading this. Can't carve as much time out of the day to read all the things and knit all the things and watch all the things. Yeah, but I'm going to share my thoughts whenever I have new insights to share. And then my husband got me surprise mail, which now this looks very gossipy, but it is supposed, because this is written by the former editor of the New Yorker or something like that, and she has collected all kinds of material on not just now the Meghan Markle Harry affair for lack of a better word, but on all sorts of previous affairs in the British Royal House. And she has published the Palace Papers. It looks like a tabloid. I hope it doesn't read like one. I think it doesn't read like one because I've heard a very good review. Not review, but a podcast that talked about this entire, topic based on Harry's book coming out now. And that came away very well. So that journalist was very, very, very much smitten with the book. So I am definitely interested in that. And my husband listened to that podcast first, and then he thought, oh, maybe I have to get this for her because that is going to be just right up my alley, and it is. So very excited. If you can't tell, I'm really excited. So this is probably going to, those 3 books, I'm not gonna lie, they might well take me until Christmas to go through them. But that just goes to say that, well, I'm going to be super happy until Christmas. In which case, yay. Yeah, and I have to say, there is another thing that I can put in the current obsessions segment, sort of. I think I want to move to Norway. This is a thought that has settled so firmly into my brain that every day I think I want to move to Norway. I want to live someplace where there's a lot of nature and not so many people. And I want to live someplace where there are cold winters and not warm summers. So yes, I think it makes sense for summer days to also be really warm, because I think if you have a really cold winter and a really warm summer, you can appreciate the entire circle of seasons. But we get very, very, very hot summers here now, and I did not sign up for that, and the cold winters are really going to fade. So we've had snow once for half a day this winter. And I want to live someplace where it's cold, where it's just cold in winter. And where it's warm in summer, but not hot. And I think I want to move to Norway. What am I going to do now? I really want to. Yeah. I'm just sharing that just because I'm really obsessed with that thought. Not that I'm looking at houses now, but I'm really obsessed with the thought of moving there. I'm just going to put it out there. But for the time being, we are thinking of moving out of Berlin. So yeah, maybe that's a first step. We'll take it from there. Okay, guys. If you've stuck around until now, thank you so much for hanging with me or for allowing me to keep you company for a little bit. As always, find something that you can mend in your life. It doesn't have to be a piece of clothing, even though they lend themselves so readily. And in our household, the to be mended pile grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. But maybe you don't have children who rip holes and everything. So find something else to mend, or whenever something breaks, take on that challenge and you will feel really good about yourselves. So, and obviously happy knitting. If you have more pattern inspiration that you want to share, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll be so interested in hearing what you are knitting, what you are making, whether you have like a favorite project that you would always go to, or a favorite sweater you want to reknit time and again, or your favorite DK weight socks pattern. Sorry, because apparently I'm getting into that. So I'm excited if you feel like sharing your own pattern inspiration and obsessions down below. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you want to support this channel, there is a Ko-fi page for it where you can get me a cup of black tea for $2. So if that is something that you want to do, then just hop on over there. The link for that is also going to be down below. And other than that, I just hope I'm going to talk to you again soon. And I hope you're well and have a good first few weeks of February that are upon us now. Okay. Take care, guys. Bye. And until soon.